I'm Jean Gray, publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today and host of the podcast series Experience Voices, where I talk with highly accomplished people who share the critical elements that led to their success. Entrepreneur twin brothers Nikita and Iliya Bridan forged their automotive careers based on their youthful passion for cars, which began in Ukraine. Nikita, our guest today on Experience Voices, shares how the brothers have lived their ultimate dream, founding an automotive startup that will introduce in 2026 its HF11 limited production car priced at over $1 million. Nikita, welcome to Experience Voices. I'm excited to hear about your new vehicle that you're producing that has some phenomenal features for your customers.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to a fun chat.
So let's start by you just explaining to the listeners the F11, what you've built and why it's such a breakthrough vehicle.
Yeah, so the HF11 is the culmination of, 10 years in the automotive industry for my brother and I. And, it's very much a different approach than all the big OEMs. Our main feature is sort of we're powertrain agnostics. We're both either gas or EV on a very modular platform. And it's basically a game changer in terms of the technology involved.
So as far as a driver, the discerning driver who is your target, what are they valuing in the car in terms of feature, but also maybe the feel and the drive that they have in your car?
Yeah, I think we build cars for the proper enthusiast. And in many ways, sort of the industry's moved away from that. Things have become a little bit homogenized and standardized. And so our clients, our buyers, they're very much buying these things as, first of all, as like a piece of art, right? Second of all, for the technology involved. So on the EV side, we're super, super high tech. Combustion side, we have a cutting edge sort of engine, 12,000 RPM. And so it's this combination of sort of early adopter, but a lover of art, and obviously a pure driving joy. So that's who we cater to.
It does have a high price tag, though.
Yes. The price tag is very high. Starting a car company, very capital intensive. A lot of the R&D costs and where we play is certainly very elevated. Our goal is over time to scale and bring a product that's much more affordable later on, maybe in 3 to 4 years. But first, we do start with the Halo product, as we call it.
And it's a limited production run that you're doing as an introduction. How many cars and when will they be available?
Yeah, initial batch of 25. We chose 25 because that was the homologation number back in the 60s to go racing. You had to build 25 street cars. So we like that number. We're very much influenced by that period. And they'll be available, first customer deliveries will be like end of 26. And then we start testing in a few months with our first prototype.
So this is a very ambitious goal that you have set for yourself and your brother. So what research or how did you form your vision based upon what you had seen other automotive entrepreneurs attempt in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy difficult thing to do. I would basically, if anyone asks, I would advise them not to do it. But we were naive in a way. You don't know what you don't know. And if you did know everything, you wouldn't start it. But we came from a place of pretty, decent knowledge after 10, 15 years in the automotive industry. My brothers put 7 million cars on the road for Honda, Acura. So we came from sort of an insider point of view. But we just saw a lot of problems in the industry, a lot of problems in the approach. Of course, we're huge students of history. We've studied all the successes, but also all the failures, right? The DeLoreans, the Dysons, et cetera, and what went wrong there. And so, we definitely did a lot of research, kind of compiled it all together. And, in 2019, when we started Oil Stain, we built the Half 11 prototype. And it was just like a fun project for my brother and I. And it somehow went crazy online and spread like a crazy virus. And people started reaching out from all over the world saying, hey, we would like to buy this. So we kind of had a little bit of traction that we've built up over the last 4 years. And there was definitely a desire for something like this, which led us to even considering to start this very capital intensive business. This is not for the faint of heart. And so, yeah, began basically putting a business model together and began planning, putting supply chains and engineering teams together, figuring out all the costs, and filtered, of course, with the fact of what we've learned from other companies' successes and failures. But yeah, it was a long process. I mean, we often joke it's an overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Exactly. So that's one of the questions I was curious about, is going back to the very early stages, is how do you set up shop? This is, you said capital intensive, but you're basically pulling together so many different components to create your first vehicle. You did it in your garage, or you put some initial money together to set up a facility? How did those first setup days go?
Yeah, I mean, kind of have to go back to 2019 when we started with the original prototype. That was fully self-funded, my brother and I. And it took us, 3-4 years to put this thing together. But it gave us a huge amount of connections in the industry, also from our 10 years in the automotive industry, which helped. We knew who to talk to, who not to talk to. And then as we built this car, obviously the traction and sort of the attraction to the automotive community, people were inviting us to all these events, and so the prototype's now been all over the US. We drove it from LA to New York. That got a lot of excitement. The car's been to Goodwood in the UK. It's won awards at the most prestigious car events like the Quail up at Car Week. And so as that's all coming together, obviously it's creating a lot of hype and energy around the brand. And so people want to be part of that. And people start reaching out. And so that's how we sort of have met a lot of people that have now contributed to the new car that we're developing. So it's like building blocks, slow building blocks over 5 years. We are now in the process of, I guess I'll back up a little bit. So after the traction, and we decide, okay, we're going to do a production car, we did raise an initial round through an angel investor. And that guaranteed us basically the funds to sort of develop and build this first prototype. And going forward now, we're looking to set up the final sort of factory assembly location, which is getting interesting with all the tariffs and stuff. So yeah, it's fun times.
Yes, it's an exciting time, I would have to say, especially what I'm reading about for the automotive industry.
Yes.
So I was hearing from another entrepreneur that having the prototype as a demo really can seal the deal in so many of the conversations that you're having. Would you say that's true when you put your prototype together, how it changed the storyline when you were talking to potential investors or prospective customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we call it the MVP, right? Most viable prototype. And certainly the first car put us on the map. And it was also good for our design business and our branding and storytelling business. So we ran that on the side. So that was great. But also, yeah, it shows that you have the internal team to develop something, to build something that's real. I think in today's age, obviously technology has been democratized so much in terms of 3D modeling, rendering, AI visualization, all of these tools. It's easy to create images. It's easy to create videos even. But that's not a real thing. And we deal in the hardware space, right? So these things need to be real. Someone needs to sit in it, smell it, feel it, get scared by it in our situation. So yeah, I mean, it's vital for us. And the new car, once the new car comes online, that's going to be a huge milestone for us as well. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Your prototype is unique in that not everyone is building a car as their first product. So there must have been some starts and stops as far as your test driving. So how does a prototype get tested that then leads to sort of additional iterations of development?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first car was developed. It was a much more primitive car than sort of the production cars, much less sophisticated. And we work with a very talented engineering team that build race cars, very safe cars. They race all over the world. But I'll never forget the first test. And my brother, I have a twin brother, and we're both the founders. And basically, rock, paper, scissors, who gets to go drive it. And I won. So I was going to go drive it first. But it's a very scary day. You know, I hugged my wife and I said, okay, I'm going to test this thing. Like, hope to see you later. It's very cool to be part of a small team. And you run these tests. And of course, you use best practices, but inevitably, you learn so much from physical testing, where the weak points are, what are the characteristics that we like, what are the characteristics we don't like. And then for us, particular, because we are such a nostalgic product offering, I'm fairly young, I guess, in the automotive space. So we bring in guys that are from that period that we love. So they would have raced in the 70s. And we bring in those older drivers because they know those cars. They've experienced it. They lived it. And we effectively tell them, like, hey, can you just confirm, like, we're on the right path? Like, this is what it felt like back in the day. Like, you know, that excitement, that pure driving joy that doesn't exist today. And so that's vital for us. And it's really cool to see these guys, the smiles on their faces as, the memories get rekindled.
Well,
cool.
I imagine you have built quite a fan base already based upon it's just an exciting product that, you know, naturally gathers in people's excitement.
Yeah, you can't say no if someone invites you to go drive. I mean, who's going to say no, right?
So looking back, because you go from the prototype and now you're moving into it's a limited custom production vehicle. You've described it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is so you're now in that mode of moving from prototype into your first actual vehicles for your customers. So what has been your biggest challenge in making the pivot from prototype to production?
Great question. You know, a prototype, it's obviously one off, so it's difficult from that point of view where each piece is custom. But each piece is custom, so you can just do whatever you want. You know, cost is not really a thing. Engineering isn't really a thing. You just make it and you make it work. When you start getting into production with 25 units, we're stuck in this little bit of a limbo area where it's not mass production where costs come down, but it's also mass production considerations because you're making more than one. And so it's this very awkward area that we're in. It's wonderful because, again, you can do things that are very unique because costs and our client, you know, they don't really care about the cost. It's more about the spirit, the passion of it, the art of it. The biggest challenge by far in terms of the actual project is the carbon fiber tub. So the original prototype was a tube frame, so basically metal tubes welded together. The new car is a carbon fiber monocoque. So basically you have the passenger safety cell. And it's been mind-blowingly difficult to get all the engineering, everybody to buy off and everybody to be happy, because with metal, you can always weld something on, you can drill, you can tap, you can modify it. With carbon fiber, you can't really modify it. And so everything has to be perfect before you make the first one. And that's really difficult. And it's a huge jigsaw puzzle that needs to be put together. And so that is the bane of my existence.
When you laid out the road ahead, no, I'm sorry, no pun intended, did you identify, such as what you just described, as various junctures where you knew you had not yet figured out how to move past a particular part of the car? And you knew something was coming down the road of, we've gone so far, but now we're up to a big challenge. Did you anticipate that over a timeline?
I mean, I feel like that's every day, to be honest.
That's not a fair answer.
Yes. So, you know, I think the project has had a very slippery slope of constant sort of innovation and constantly pushing to do more. We've been very lucky with sort of having the investment on board that time hasn't been super sensitive for us. And the product that we're making isn't super sensitive. So we've had the ability to see an opportunity and sort of go chase it, and potentially not knowing how to get there, especially, for example, with our EV powertrain swapping. That was sort of it was a pipe dream at the start. And we really needed to find the right partners, the right technology, the right supply chain to sort of make that happen. And I would say over a period of 2 years, it went from a fuzzy dream into like a reality, to where, okay, this is actually makes a lot of sense and we can do it. But those 2 years are very uncomfortable, right? Because you're saying you're making this product and you have basically no idea how you're going to do it. So yeah, it's fun.
You had a little idea about how to do it.
Yes.
So, but you've got some great intellectual property then?
We do, yeah. We've got it on some of the technology side and obviously on the chassis side, in terms of sort of some elements of the modularity, some elements of the technology integration, and some on the things that create a unique experience.
The vision you have, you were explaining at the beginning, is to eventually produce cars in greater numbers. So, a couple of questions on that. In looking at prior models of other startups, if you start doing a mass production, are the people who bought the original 25 really buying into some sort of, I don't know what the word is, that they own an original? It's sort of when 20 years later with the Apple Mac, they went out and then found out that people had about, only the original 5 or 6 Mac computer.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine some of the people who would buy the first 25 would love to see the car go into mass production and end up being one of the original buyers. Is that a way of thinking?
Yeah, a little bit. Certainly, from the very start, we wanted to create cars that are timeless. And that's part of why we have our powertrain strategy. It's a much more architectural approach to the cars. For example, like if your roof goes bad on your house, you don't throw away the house, right? You just fix the roof. But with cars, they're very much disposable these days. So yeah, these first 25 cars, very much the idea is that they will be these sort of forever cars, these timeless cars, and they'll be very special. The cars that will come later, sort of the mass produced cars, and when we say mass production, it's still only going to be 300 cars a year. Like that's our
Oh, okay.
So it's not a huge amount. It's still going to be very, very limited. And they will be an order of magnitude cheaper. Almost, let's say, take a zero off. So it'll be a very different product. It'll be a similar sort of ethos, approach, and I think a similar buyer, but maybe one who doesn't have as deep a pocket and isn't so worried about the ultimate in exclusivity, the ultimate in technology. So it's a little bit simplified and dumbed down, let's say.
Will those cars then be in a very specific niche market that then who your future competitors will be? Because there are really high-end cars already out there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be in a small group of competitors, or are you still going to be sort of in a totally distinct area?
Yeah, I think there certainly would be, I guess, a few competitors. It's a very small market. I mean, it's a big market. There's a big demand for it, but currently the offerings are very small. There's very few cars that are so singularly focused on just pure driving joy, and none of them come from any OEMs. All the competitors are also very small boutique companies. And I don't see them really as competitors. I see them more as people enabling a market, right? And so if we all build good product, that marketplace will grow. And so I wouldn't say that we're competitive with them or we want to like beat them on any stat or anything. We want them to succeed and to spread the message of what it is that we're building. So I think that's kind of our viewpoint on it. We're less focused on competitors, more about just building the community and everything.
And the 25 cars that are coming out, I understand that they're not all coming out at one time. There is a certain element of customization of each car. So how would you describe the rollout of the 25 cars? If I'm interested in buying the vehicle now, and then there are 5 other people, am I on a waiting list, or do you have a schedule that I can be brought into the shop and begin the process?
Correct. Yeah. So generally in this sort of exclusive car space, you place a small deposit, well, a large deposit, depending on your outlook, to secure basically your allocation, your build slot. And then after that, depending on where you are in line, it could be a wait of, 24 months until you get the car. And as the car is being built, we work with basically a CMF team, color material team, a CG team, visualization team, and then we have a VR experience where you can basically put on a VR headset, sit in the car, you can sit in the interior, and everything is customizable, right? So colors, materials, finishes, to the point of like, if a customer wants to do a custom wheel set, we could do that, or a custom rear body work. If they really want to spend extra money to do that, it's obviously extremely expensive, but it is something that's very attractive to people because then they can genuinely say, I have a one of one, which is, I think that's where the marketplace is going. Certainly, we see more of a coach building direction developing over time. And that's kind of been our strategy with developing the platform and the power agnostic thing. So that's something we'll increasingly offer to people. But first, we got to get through these first 25.
So you mentioned you had an initial backer, an angel investor. Mm-hmm. So as you go into the production mode, are you bringing in more funding to get through the next couple of years?
Yeah, we'll be raising another round shortly. And what that does is basically gets us the ability to bring in a little bit more supply chain in-house, which gives us basically better control, better timing. And then it allows us to start developing the next sort of products. So that's really important so that we're ready to go for the next round, and allows us to invest in future technologies and stuff like that we see that need to be sort of implemented in our future strategy.
Is it easy, or can I assume that if the round is comprised mostly of high net worth individuals, is each one getting a car, or they're just simply investing in the company?
There's different ways to invest. We do have sort of 11 maniacs that get a little bit of equity in the car company as well as a car. So that is certainly one way. And as you're alluding to, of course, that's the nice part of where we operate. People that buy these cars also are very interested in investing and supporting the car company that they're buying. They want it to be around for a long time. And yeah, so that's good. It's convenient.
So let's just touch a little bit on the fact that you're working with your brother, which I just learned is your twin brother. So is it a good working relationship? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been sort of, working together for, 37 years now. So we certainly know the ins and outs of it. I think we work really, really well together. There's the added benefit of a very unfiltered relationship, obviously, when you've been together for so long, and a strong belief that whenever you say something, it's really to make things better and not to just offend someone. Of course, we don't always see eye to eye, but we do know that when we both see eye to eye, that's the right answer. And so we're very patient until we do see things eye to eye. We've got two very different backgrounds. He's got much more of a production background, and my background is a little bit more on advanced strategy for the OEMs, I guess. And so we do things a little bit differently. We have slightly different skill sets, but again, we know that when we congregate on one answer, that's the right answer. So it just sometimes takes some hair pulling to get there.
Would you describe your personalities as similar or different? Because I happen to have friends who are twins, and they're identical twins, but surprisingly, their personalities are so different.
Geez, I think our personalities are similar, but we have different weeks when they don't align necessarily. So some weeks he's grumpier, some weeks I'm grumpier. So I think we have a similar personality, but the calendar doesn't match.
That's a good way of putting it. So looking forward, a lot of it is about company culture. And you've already built a team, you've already got investors behind you. How do you think about company culture as you're going to have to bring more people on and navigate the next 12 to 24 months?
Wow, that is a brutal question because it is so difficult. Yes. This is the one question I actually ask all entrepreneurs or business owners or successful guys in the industry. This is, how do you hire? How do you build that culture? And I've heard the most crazy, profound ways of doing it, but ultimately never one that's foolproof. Anyone that we work with, we're very lucky that the people we work with now are all amazing, but they've been vetted through, 4 years of basically relationships and prior work and small jobs. And we've built into this really tightly knit family. As we grow, the culture is very important. We're very much a culture brand and a community brand. And as much as we are outward facing, internally we're very closed off and protective of that culture. So yeah, hiring's been difficult. We right now our process is basically not a trial, but we like to kind of work slowly with people, see how it fits, and then we're very patient on the education side. We try to instill our values, describe what our values are, and give people a shot to adapt, or to, if they want to resist, give us a reason why they want to resist, right? Because not everything we do is perfect, and we understand that. So it's a very patient process, but then there is a point where we just have to be hardcore and be like, okay, it's a fit, it's not a fit. And that's where, on the human side, it's difficult, but on the business side, that's kind of what a CEO founder has to do. But yeah, that's the least favorite part of doing this. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard decisions. So on the strategy of that, like for instance, on the marketing side and preparing all of the material,
Mhm.
is that something that in the short term you would outsource, or you already envision your executive team filling out with like a CMO, that adds to a fuller perspective on the leadership?
Yeah, I mean, currently my brother and I set the direction. I get some help and assistance from my wife who does work in marketing, and we've got a few other people that are sort of, as any startup, you're very multifaceted. So currently that's how we operate. We've interviewed and talked to a few marketing people. It's never worked out because it always feels inauthentic, and it's been very difficult to find the right rebellious qualities in a lot of these people that have, sort of grown up in the corporate system, where being a rebel is not necessarily endorsed, or that's not how you climb the corporate ladder, right? It's very, very rare. There are a few people that I've spoken to that I think that could be a good fit, but they're so high ranking and very successful, and there's no way they would ever join our tiny little startup currently. So yeah.
Well, is it fair to say that whoever's interviewing is dealing with two mavericks who happen to also be twins? Is that part of the challenge?
I guess it is, but I think what we're trying to do is very much disrupt the normal way of telling automotive stories and automotive brands. And throughout history, there's been very few brands that have focused so much on storytelling and building a brand that way, as opposed to, okay, we came out with a new electric motor, this is our brand, we're a high technology brand. We're very much about this mysterious, this little bit of magic, and it's very difficult, I think, for people to grasp that or to sort of really articulate it. It's yeah, I don't know, I don't know, it's more Hollywood than it is.
There's a little bit of there's a chemistry going on there, and you're adding another element into the chemistry for sure. Whenever you're bringing someone of substance into the company,
Mm-hmm.
so I guess we can wrap with then you looking 2, 3, 4 years down the road, because now I've learned that you project to do about 300 vehicles a year.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you vision yourselves in the 3 or 5 year period when you're now putting out 300 cars a year? Same car every year, new versions of the same car, broadening customer base? How do you see that?
Obviously, when we do scale to the 300 cars, there'll be quite a big division, let's say, between our Halo products, which is kind of what HF11 is. That will continue, and that will get diversified as well through different product, and including coach building. And then the other more affordable car, which will be 300 a year, that will be like a 4-year program, and then it'll get refreshed or redesigned and kind of, keep it relatively fresh that way. Building 300 cars is really hard. So that is something that will take a big team building exercise in terms of getting the right people involved, the distribution of that, and then ultimately growing much more global will be kind of the big challenges. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. And then I think hopefully we'll be able to tell more stories in our way and create new experiences for the clients, new experiences for the people that own the cars, and new ways of building community. I think that's our big thing right now, is to build our community and then spread that like a virus around the world. That's the goal.
Well, that sounds like a great story, Nikita, and I've enjoyed speaking with you today and excited for you in taking on such an ambitious entrepreneurial endeavor and the added complexity, we'll say, of a twin brother. So thank you for being a guest and sharing your story, and I'm looking forward to more stories in the future.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
You have been listening to the podcast series Experience Voices. To hear more and subscribe, visit AmericanEntrepreneurship.com/podcast, where you will also find a form for listener feedback.